something, I guess, something came up. Oh. Yeah. But I wonder, should we get started without? Yep. Yep. Okay. Yeah. Is he? Any word on Espaillat? Okay, we're going to start as soon as he gets here. Whoever's next, we'll go to him. Okay. Okay.
Frankie.
Still morning. So Frankie, I'm going to cost you.
Thank you, my friend.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Buenos dias. My name's Janet Murguia. I'm president and CEO of Unidos US. We're the largest Latino civil rights and advocacy organization in the United States. I'm so proud to be here with so many of the respected leaders of so many wonderful sister Latino organizations who are working very hard every day on behalf of our community. I know we're going to be joined during this press conference by our chair of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, and we welcome him, and when he comes, we will make sure that he gets the podium. But in the meantime, we're going to get started. And as I mentioned, joining me today are several heads of the sister national Hispanic organizations, as well as representatives from the Unidos US affiliate network. We have at Unidos US 300 community-based organizations across the country that are serving our communities and families every day through programs, services, and advocacy. And we're proud that they are here today to lend their voices and to share their advocacy with the members of Congress in these next couple of days. And they will share firsthand the impact of the administration's actions on our communities across the country. You know, there's been a lot of speculation, some accurate and some misleading, about who and what Latino voters voted for last November. What is not up for debate, though, is that these voters overwhelmingly voted for policies to support those who are struggling economically. Latino voters want to see inflation go down. They want to see prices go down. They want to be able to know they can make ends meet, working hard to support their families. The voters want their federal government to address these rising costs of living and the need for affordable housing and access to health. And these were the top priorities for our voters. Yet, in the last month or so, there's not been any attempt to address these urgent issues critical not only to the nation's 65 million Latinos, 1 in 5 of those who live in this country, but to all Americans. Instead, we've received from this administration chaos, cruelty, and an unconstitutional abuse of power. We've seen, for example, a baseless and woefully short-sighted attack on diversity, equity, and inclusion, in which highly qualified people who have been devoted for years of service to our country are disrespected and dismissed simply because of who they are. Opponents of DEI are presenting a false choice between diversity and merit. For the record, DEI is rooted in the protections of the Civil Rights Act and has always been about merit. It is also about ensuring the future well-being of our economy and our nation. Not to mention that it's especially hypocritical and galling to be lectured on merit by an administration that has nominated the least qualified cabinet in U.S. history. And instead of a sincere and constructive effort to address our broken immigration system, what we've seen are PR stunts, the needless upending of businesses and communities, and above all, profound and disgraceful cruelty. We will hear soon from our affiliates in a moment about the fear, concern, and anxiety permeating the communities as a result. We are also seeing actions from this administration that will make all Americans less safe, less healthy, and less prosperous, whether it is endangering food safety, consumer protections, Medicaid and Medicare, and even air safety. Our affiliates are on the Hill today to send a message to their representatives in Congress. We will stand up for our community, we will stand up for our values and our country, and to let them know that we will hold them accountable for their actions. I want to, again, offer up the podium to our chair and leader of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. He's joined us now. He's been a fearless leader on so many fronts, and we're so proud to have him at the helm of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. We are pleased to welcome Adriano Espaillat.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here today. Beautiful sunny day, right? But it is cloudy and stormy in America. And this is a debate ultimately about life or death. I say that because when you're a mom and you take your child to school in the morning, you want to make sure that if that child gets an asthma attack, that in the first critical 30 minutes, you have a school-based clinic there to assist your child in a moment that could be of life or death. If you're a diabetic and you need that insulin to be accessible, affordable, so that you can deal with that life-threatening disease, because this is about life or death. If you are a family that's on Medicaid, and we see the major cuts happening in Medicaid, and in my district, for example, the 13th Congressional District of New York, 524,000 people are Medicaid recipients, and 108,000 people are Medicare recipients, meaning that out of 780,000 constituents that I service, over 600,000 of them are Medicaid or Medicare recipients. There's 225,000 families, households, that have food stamps. So this argument is ultimately about life or death. This is not just a simple vote on a reconciliation bill, on a budget bill. This is not business as usual at the Capitol. This is about life or death. And our communities are exposed, openly exposed to being hurt in dramatic and long-lasting ways. So this is not just an argument about balancing the budget or reducing the deficit or making sure that we do better budget gimmicks for America. This is about our health. This is about cardiovascular problems. This is about asthma. This is about diabetics. This is about renal problems. This is about cancer and treatment for cancer. This is about HIV/AIDS. This is about life or death. And then I will be remiss if I don't speak about something that's emblematic of our community, and that is immigration. And we must tighten our message to let America know that we are for dreamers, farm workers, and keeping families together. We will not back up 1 inch, nor we will surrender our fight, our commitment to immigrant families. And yes, we'll talk about the border. We want to talk about the border because we have members of Congress that represent border communities. But ultimately, we are about dreamers because many of them are nurses. Many of them are teachers, homeowners, small business owners. We are about farm workers because many of them are staying home. And farmers are telling us that we're going to feel the pinch at the cash register in the supermarket. And of course, keeping families together is fundamental for America, because a divided family is a weak family that makes a weak nation. So we are about dreamers, farm workers, and keeping families together. These are our two battles right now. And I'm glad that Unidos is here leading the way. A battle for life or death, and a battle for dreamers, farm workers, and keeping our families together. God bless you and keep the faith.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Chair Espaillat. We so appreciate your advocacy, your championing of our families, and yes, of course, rejecting the budget resolution that was passed last night that would threaten so many of our Latino families and everyone at risk for all the important funding that is going to be necessary just to sustain so many families in the next few years. So we appreciate that advocacy. We're going to hear next from a leader of the Hispanic Federation. Join me in welcoming Frankie Miranda.
Thank you. Thank you, Janet. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. And thank you to Janet and Unidos for bringing us together. We're gathered here not just to complain about a new administration. We're here to warn all Americans of the devastating effects that the last 5 weeks had on all our lives, on everyone's lives, especially vulnerable communities. No matter how you look at it, the economy is the #1 priority for voters, as Janet mentioned before. Same proved true for Latino voters in swing states, as revealed by several polls done by the Hispanic Federation, Unidos, and many other organizations represented here. The fact is that, unfortunately, nothing that the White House have chosen to do in the last 5 weeks have been to address this important issue, the inflation and the economy and the quality of life of our communities. It is heartbreaking how to see the administration's executive orders prioritize fear, confusion, chaos, instead of providing opportunities for economic opportunities and economic mobilities for Americans. And I can give you a perfect example, but this is representative of many of the programs that these direct service providers, affiliates of Unidos, and many member agencies of the Hispanic Federation provide. Last year alone, Hispanic Federation member agencies helped thousands of Latinos acquire the digital skills necessary for the jobs of the future. This resulted in economic mobility for these families, increasing in salaries, bringing them out of poverty. But the freezing in federal funding that this administration has done, an illegal grab of these fundings, violating court order over court order, is putting into jeopardy all of these programs that are benefiting all Americans, and programs that are implemented by these organizations here because it's done on purpose. It's trying to destabilize the nonprofit sector, the direct service providers, essential services in our communities. So my message to everyone that is looking right now, that is watching us, we know that you're concerned. Democrats, Republicans, Independents, we know that you're concerned, but this is the time in which we need to take action and call members of Congress and express that we need to stop the madness, that we need to have policy that really reflects the interests of voters, of our communities, and we're not going to stop until we see something coming out of Congress that is positive for all of us. And now it is my pleasure to introduce my colleague, Juan Peruano, Chief Executive Officer of LULAC.
Good morning, and thank you for being here. Janet, thank you for your leadership in pulling together this distinguished group. As CEO of LULAC, I'm proud to speak about how Latinos and Hispanics are driving and defining America's future, and to call on leaders in government and in business to help us build a more equitable future. Latinos' economic contributions are remarkable. Our community's output hit $3.7 trillion last year. If U.S. Latinos were our own country, we'd have the 5th largest economy in the world. We make up only 19% of the population, yet during the pandemic, we drove 39% of the GDP growth. That's a result of hard work, entrepreneurship, and a drive for the American dream. Latinos are a cornerstone of the American workforce. We have a labor force participation rate over 68%, well above the national average. Latinos power industries from agriculture to technology, and we pay our share. In 2019, Latino households contributed over $308 billion in taxes, revenue that supports schools, roads, and social services. Our entrepreneurial spirit is strong. About 5 million Latino-owned businesses nationwide contribute roughly $800 billion to our economy and employ millions of people. And as consumers, we wield nearly $3.9 trillion in buying power. No business can afford to overlook the economic force. Supporting Latino workers and entrepreneurs isn't just right, it's smart for business in America. Latino contributions also go far beyond economics. Our culture enriches Americans' identity every day. Latino artists win Oscars and Grammys, and Latino music is mainstream. In our schools, nearly 30% of students are Latino, and more Latino youth graduate now more than ever. And in public service, we've reached historic milestones. A record number of Latinos in Congress, the first Latina Supreme Court Justice, and countless Latinos serving as mayors, council members, teachers, and members of the armed forces. Despite these contributions, challenges remain. I call on elected officials to come together to address community needs. We need bipartisan action to expand economic opportunity, to pass sensible immigration reform, and advance equity. That means investing in education and job training, fixing our broken immigration system with a path for citizenship for dreamers and others contributing to our economy, and ensuring policies in healthcare, housing, and education close the gaps. These are American issues that affect us all. My message to business leaders is equally urgent. Be our partners in progress. Turn diversity pledges into action. Do not run or retreat from your diversity initiatives. Turn diversity pledges into action and hire and promote Latino talent, invest in Latino entrepreneurs, and ensure equal opportunity for Latino workers. Show that you value us not just as consumers, but as essential contributors to your success. When you open doors for Latino talent, you fuel America's prosperity. When Latinos succeed, America succeeds. Our story is the American story of hard work and hope for a better tomorrow. Our voices are strong, stronger than ever, but we need allies to amplify them. To everyone in government and business, stand with the Latino community, and you stand with America's future. It's my pleasure now to introduce my friend in arms, Hector Sanchez Barba, from Mi Familia Vota.
Thank you. Thank you, Hector.
Buenos días. Hector Sanchez Barba from Mi Familia Vota. We have the largest field infrastructure working on civic participation in the nation. And today, in this beautiful day, is a day of hope. Times of challenges represent times of opportunities. And you have some of the most important Latino and immigrant organizations standing together to say, ya basta. Enough to the attacks to our democracy. Enough to the attacks to all of our families. Enough to the attacks on immigrants. Enough to the attacks on labor rights, civil rights, and women's rights in the nation. Today we're sending a clear message that we are not going to be defeated as a community, as a nation, as working class families, but more importantly, as a democracy. Today we stand together to remind everybody that we have been working hard in the front lines, making this a better and a stronger democracy day to day. We make this democracy better because we do citizenship, we do voter registration, we do voter education, we do voter mobilization, and that is what democracy is all about. We are on the front lines making this democracy better. And also, we are talking to our community day to day. And we are also reflecting the policy priorities of our community. And we can tell you as the leaders of the Latino and immigrant community that Trump and the MAGA movement do not represent those policy priorities. When it comes to the immigrant community, enough with the attacks on immigrants. This nation is built on immigrants. This nation depends on the hard work of immigrants. During COVID, this nation was saved and our economy was saved because of the hard work of immigrants in the nation. We need to stop the MAGA irrational attacks on immigrants and have a real conversation because it's going to affect all of us. If you don't want your vegetables to increase in pricing, stop an anti-immigrant movement. If you want people that can build your roads, your houses, help with your gardens, help with your people, help with the restaurants, help with the service industry, we must stop the attacks on immigrants because this is going to affect us all. There is a research that shows that if we move in a massive deportation to our immigrants, it can affect the GDP from 5 to 7% in the nation. This is about everybody, and we need real solutions on the issue of immigration. When it comes to working families, we also need to stop this MAGA movement in the nation. What happened today in Congress? What happened today in Congress with the attacks on Medicare, the Medicaid, and next Social Security is unacceptable. That's a non-negotiable, and all working-class families historically have stand together defending central elements that are critical for working-class families. All of us are going to keep fighting. All of us are going to keep organizing, mobilizing, and resisting, and this is a call to action. I invite everybody in the nation to become a citizen, to register to vote, to learn about the issues, to join these amazing organizations that are in the front lines, and let's say, ya basta. Ya basta el extremismo en este país. Ya basta el extremismo que se está dando contra nuestras comunidades. Pero es importante que nos organicemos, es importante que estemos participando en la democracia, hagámonos ciudadanos, registrémonos para votar y únanse a todas estas organizaciones que son tan importantes, porque juntos vamos a poder no solo salvar esta democracia, pero hacer esta democracia mucho más fuerte. Muchas gracias. Sorry, Janet. Sorry about that. Thank you. And it's my honor to introduce Oklahoma U.S. affiliate Salvador Ontiveros, President and CEO of the Latino Community Development Agency.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Unidos US, for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Salvador Ontiveros, President and CEO of the Latino Community Development Agency in Oklahoma, where we support over 24 programs and serve over 40,000 Oklahomans each year. Today, I want to share some very real and urgent challenges faced by our community. I want to share a story of a family who was called U.S. home for over 15 years. They are hardworking, tax-paying residents with 3 beautiful daughters born in Oklahoma. They own their home and contribute positively to their community. But behind the stability lies a heartbreaking reality. Their older daughters, aged 11 and 9, are afraid to go to school. They've seen friends disappear, and they live with a constant fear that one day they might come home and find their parents gone. No child should have to bear such a burden. This fear is not only robbing them of their childhood, but also their education and sense of security. There's also a story of a mother who has survived unimaginable trauma. She is raising young children, including a preschooler with speech delays and an infant with medical challenges, while pregnant and battling postpartum depression. Despite her need for therapy, she cannot access it due to fear of driving, fear of law enforcement, and fear of being separated from her family. Her children are not receiving the care they need, and the nightmares of immigration enforcement breaking down their door have left her paralyzed. This story is not an isolated incident. Panic attacks, anxiety, and a loss of trust in public systems are common among the families that we serve. Recently, a father was deported, leaving behind a mother and child with no breadwinner. The little boy, overwhelmed with anxiety, began biting his lips until they bled. We enrolled him in our programs and provided as much support as we could. That same evening, while watching Blue Beetle with my own family, I was struck by a scene where government operatives broke into a Latino's home, dragging them out. It mirrored the real fears our families face, and I couldn't hold back my emotions. It was a reminder that while these scenes may be fictional, the trauma for our community is all too real. Our families are scared. Our children are confused. They don't understand why their classmates, their neighbors, might view them with suspicion or hatred. This is causing real, lasting damage. In Oklahoma, recent initiatives to request legal status on public school enrollment forms have only deepened this mistrust. Families are keeping their children home, choosing isolation over education, simply to feel safe. The dangers of not educating our young people far outweigh any perceived benefit of these measures. We must prioritize compassion, respect, and inclusivity. We must ensure that every child has the opportunity to learn, to thrive, and to feel safe in their own home and community. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. And thank you for standing with us as we fight to bring hope and safety to those who need it the most. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to introduce Vanessa Cardenas from America's Vote, the Executive Director.
Thank you so much, and good morning, everyone, for being here. I really want to start by first thanking all the leaders that we have here today. Thank you, Unidos, for organizing us, but thank you to each and every one of these leaders who's doing organizing on the ground, helping our communities advance. My name is Vanessa Cardenas, and I'm the Executive Director of America's Voice. America's Voice and hundreds of organizations across the country have for years worked to call attention and engage in efforts to reform our immigration system. Yes, our system is broken and in urgent need of reform. But let's be clear, scapegoating immigrants is being used as a political strategy to stir division, hate, and fear. And now we're seeing this dangerous strategy being advanced by policymakers, no matter the cost to our families, our communities, and our economy. The anti-immigrant obsession displayed by some members of Congress and this administration comes at a high cost to all Latinos and all Americans. It is costly, chaotic, and cruel. We are witnessing the indiscriminate detention and deportation of immigrants, no matter their deep roots in this nation, their family ties, or their contributions to their communities in this country. More than 40% of people who have been detained in Trump's raids have no criminal convictions. Even people with legal status, like Venezuelans and Haitians with TPS, are now going to be targeted. These dangerous efforts comes at a high cost not only to our families and our communities, but also to the U.S. economy and vital industries like caregiving, construction, and agriculture, to just name a few. The obsession with harming communities is so great that in the current budget proposal, the GOP is looking to get rid of health insurance and food programs for millions of Americans to fund the separation of families and targeting long-established, hard-working, deeply rooted immigrants in our communities. The proposed budgets to cuts to fund it are cruel, immoral, and fiscally irresponsible. They do nothing to better the lives of the American people, do nothing to keep us safe, and do nothing to fix our immigration system. We all want to reform an outdated immigration system, ensure an orderly border and a legal process for immigration. Our policymakers need to work towards common sense policies that advance our interests and are consistent with our values. Let me end with this. I want to thank all of those Americans who are standing with the immigrant community right now. All those lawyers who are sharing information about our rights, all those people, of good faith, faith leaders that are standing up for our immigrant communities. We need more of that. And here's the call to action. We have to fight for our immigration heritage. Immigrants contribute to our economy. Immigration is an essential part of America's prosperity, not just now, for the future. And please stand with us, fight with us, and work with us to actually have a conversation on policies that actually benefit our country and our communities. Thank you. And now let me introduce Karina Ayala Bermejo, President and CEO of Instituto del Progreso Latino in Chicago.
Gracias, Vanessa. Buenas tardes. ¿Cómo están todos? As Vanessa mentioned, my name is Karina Ayala Bermejo, and I have the honor of serving as the president and CEO of Instituto del Progreso Latino, and that's key to emphasize, progreso. Progreso is progress, and we will not stop until the equity and the American dream is actually affordable for all. We in Chicago serve about 10,000 families, and our mission is to ensure the Latinos, that immigrants reach their full potential, and we do that through education, training, employment, and legal services. Now, it is no secret that Dr. Phil was in Chicago lately, and it was no secret that Latinos, including U.S. citizens, are unfairly targeted and have been in this administration. Recently, on January 26th, we saw ICE come into our neighborhoods. No surprise, La Villita, South Chicago, Humboldt Park, Waukegan, all communities where our Latinos live and reside. It is the presence alone that has resulted in fear and negatively impacted the attendance in our schools, the attendance and work. 1 in 4 children in Chicago public schools comes from a mixed status family. Now, we immediately saw in our 2 high schools, our charter high schools, a dip of about 40% during those 2 weeks. About 75% of our students in our alternative high school are from 8 different countries and are living in transitional living circumstances, homeless or otherwise in shelters. Some of them are even expressing uncertainty about returning to their homeland, given this circumstance. However, our Know Your Rights presentations have made a significant interest, gaining us the notoriety of being too educated. We are too educated to allow anyone to indicate that our constitutional rights are irrelevant. So we know that the Know Your Rights presentations and those red cards are making a difference. Moreover, we've also seen efforts to combat food insecurities diminish because of this fear. Instituto, since COVID, has held distributions for food, servicing anywhere from 1,000 families on a monthly basis. And we've seen a decline in 50%. And it is heartbreaking to know that folks would rather skip on the line so that they can be safe versus nourishing their children. And despite that, we remain steadfast in our commitment to help our most vulnerable, needy families, especially families trying to obtain nourishment for their children. Lastly, recently, Instituto's USCIS grant was frozen. That creates over $250,000 deficit in a program that is for increasing citizenship. How un-American is that? In an effort to block our pathways into our American dream. We will not stop. We may need to pivot for fee-for-service and or fill that gap some other way, but it is the American dream for those individuals who've worked really hard, studied for the citizenship test to become American citizens. We Instituto are the largest submitter of citizenship applications in the state of Illinois, so it's no surprise that our program was attacked. Now, let me be clear. I am a naturalized citizen along with my parents, and my children are U.S. citizens, but there's an uneasiness in our community. There's an uneasiness that they have as U.S. citizens, and they feel that they too need to be prepared for ICE encounters. And we should never be in a country where the shade of our skin or our superpower to speak Spanish or other languages should be a trigger for ICE encounters. Let me be clear, immigrants are not criminals. Immigrants are leaders. We are lawyers, we are doctors, we are veterans, and we are fueling the economy and the strength of our country. This dangerous rhetoric and division that is attempting to be cause and divisive narratives spread by emboldened segment of individuals, it only increases the tension and this fear. Yet, we as Latinos, we have and always will continue to be a resilient bunch, haven't we? Yes. And we will endlessly continue to stand up for our children, our comunidades, and not only for my city of Chicago, but across the entire country. Now, thank you, and for now, I will pass the mic to Catherine Pichardo Erskine from Latino Victory, President and CEO.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you.
Buenos días. The story of immigrants is the story of us. La historia de los inmigrantes es nuestra historia. Yo soy inmigrante. Y con mucho orgullo vine con mi familia a los 14 años, mis padres que dejaron nuestra familia y casa en otro pueblo para hacer oportunidad para nosotros. Our opportunity is here. This is now my country. Thank you all for being with us. My name is Catherine Pichardo. I am President and CEO of Latino Victory, which is a national organization focused on building Latino political power so that our voices and our values are reflected at every level of government. We spent the last few minutes outlining for you just how in just 1 month of this administration, the gap between what was promised and what has happened cannot be starker. The administration claimed it would put working people first, yet we've seen no action to raise wages, no real plan to lower the cost of living, and policies that prioritize corporations over struggling families. Latino families work hard every single day to provide for their loved ones, yet the rising costs of essential needs, housing, healthcare, and basic goods are outpacing their wages. And as Congressman Espaillat mentioned earlier, this is about life and death. The stakes couldn't be higher. The economic mandate of the American voter was clear last year. Policymakers must act now to protect workers, not the wealthiest few. And make no mistake, the actions and the policies of this administration present a clear and present danger to all Americans. They're particularly harmful to communities of color, including Latinos, but also to working people and the most vulnerable among us. So today's speakers bear the harsh realities. Policies that cut critical programs with real impact on people and communities, healthcare access and public safety at risk, education for our children in jeopardy, worker protections rolled back, tax cuts for the rich at the expense of working families, constitutionally guaranteed rights under attack, and the inhumane immigration enforcement that we've seen with families separated and our communities in crisis. 1 month, that's all it's taken for this administration to wreak havoc on America and our values. So this is just the beginning. But for us, it isn't about policy. It's about our families, it's about our values, and it's about our futures. And we cannot afford to stay silent. So that's why we're here today. You've heard Latinos represent 20% of the population. We as business owners, as entrepreneurs, as workers, as an economic driver with a 2.5 trillion spending power, are going to be critical to the future of this country. And as we move forward, our power is undeniable. Our unity is unbreakable, and our time for action is now. The Latino vote was decisive in the last election, and let me be clear, we are watching, we are organizing, we are mobilizing, and we will not be silenced. To those in power, the choices you make today will determine the course of your viability in the future. And to our allies and our communities, stay engaged, stay vocal, and stay strong, because we're here standing with you. Thank you. And now I will introduce our last speaker, the founding executive director of AQUI, the Accountability Project, Cindy Benavides.
Muy buenos días. Good morning, everyone. Nuestros afiliados, ¿sí se puede?
Sí se puede.
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 I'm Cindy Benavides. I am the founding director of AQUI, the Accountability Movement, and I'd like to share some words for our community in Spanish. Nuestro mensaje hoy es simple. En un momento como este, el silencio es complicidad. Seas el gerente de una empresa, empleado, maestro o vecino, si te quedas de brazos cruzados mientras que nuestra comunidad es atacada por el beneficio político de otros, tu silencio permite que la crueldad se multiplique. No importa por quién votaste. Cuando miremos atrás a este momento, vamos a contarle a nuestros hijos sobre el día que defendimos a nuestras familias, a nuestros vecinos con valentía. No vamos a agachar la cabeza arrepentidos de haber mantenido el silencio, permitiendo que la crueldad gane. Nosotros somos americanos. El movimiento aquí está aquí hoy para exigir justicia y asegurar que el silencio no tenga espacio en la lucha por la dignidad humana. Declaramos con fuerza y con valentía, no más, no more, no más insultos, no más crueldad. En este país se respeta a la comunidad latina. We are America. Y nuestro poder es nuestra unidad. Nosotros somos el presente y el futuro de este país. Mi bella comunidad, hay que tomar notas y acordarnos de quién nos ataca y quién está con nosotros. At a moment like this, silence is no longer neutral. It's complicity. Whether you're a CEO, a worker, or a neighbor, if you stand by while our Latino community and other vulnerable communities are targeted for political gain, your silence allows for cruelty to thrive. When we look at this moment, will we be able to tell our children about a time when we stood up for our families and neighbors with courage? Or will we have stood by and allowed cruelty to thrive under the disguise of fear? Let me be clear. We will not forget. We know who our friends are, and we know who is attacking us. And we will use our purchasing power to invest in our communities and not invest in those who are not standing with us. Aquí, the accountability movement is here today to demand justice and ensure that silence is no longer has a place in the fight for human dignity. We are strongly and unequivocally stating no más, no more, to tarnishing the history and contributions of Latinos. And then just in case that you forgot, let us remember the Guadalupe Hidalgo Treaty. Nosotros somos americanos. We are America. Gracias.
Thank you. Thank you.
And now to Janet.
Well, thank you. You've heard from so many voices, and I think that's an important point today. We have Latino organizations that represent so many of our community across the country, across the board. We're here united, unidos, to push back on what we believe has been a series of attacks on our community and wrong-headed policies that are not only going to set our Latino community backwards, but they're going to set the whole country backwards. So we're here unidos. Es importante reconocer que en este momento todos nosotros representamos organizaciones de muchas partes y que estamos unidos como una comunidad latina y estamos aquí para rechazar las políticas que hemos visto que van a hacer daño, no solamente a nuestra comunidad, pero al país entero. Nosotros vamos a rechazar esta budget resolution que no representa los intereses de nuestra comunidad y que va a dañar tantos de nosotros. Nosotros queremos lo mejor para nuestras familias y lo mejor para este país. Y sabemos que tenemos que depender unos a otros en tener éxito en esa economía que va a avanzar a nuestro país. We're going to be opening up for questions now if folks want to have a question, and then we'll be available separately for other interviews. I have a question over here.
Aprovechando que hay tantos activistas en español, quisiera preguntarles sobre la última noticia que sacudió a la comunidad hispana, esta posibilidad de un registro que está creando la administración Trump para que inmigrantes indocumentados tengan que darle su información al gobierno so pena de persecución criminal. Si alguna o algunas organizaciones quisieran tocar su postura sobre este tema, por favor.
Sí, ahorita vamos a decirle a Vanessa que venga aquí, que representa America's Voice, pero voy a decir algo también en más broad, más pleno, que nosotros vamos a usar todos nuestros recursos que podemos para también poner demandas en contra de esta administración, porque muchos de los propósitos de los políticas que han propuesto no son constitucionales, no son legales. Están asserting en español, están asegurando esta administración que estas políticas son legales, pero no es claro y no es cierto. Nosotros vamos a hacer las demandas, ya tenemos éxito. LULAC ayudó en poner una demanda con ACLU en contra de la política que quiere quitar birthright citizenship, la ciudadanía de Estados Unidos. Entonces, nosotros vamos a usar todos los recursos que necesitamos, las opciones que podemos a seguir para demandar a esta administración y poner un alto a estas políticas que no son legales. Y eso es un paso en impacto que vamos a tomar. Vanessa? Well, wait, second. Okay, go ahead.
So just really quickly, first in Spanish and then in English. Sabemos, no tenemos muchos detalles. Lo que le decimos a la comunidad es que tenga calma y que siempre consulte con sus abogados. Y pensamos que ese es otro ataque de Trump, que obviamente vamos a retarlo en las cortes. Pero el punto está acá. Si él quisiera realmente saber quién está en este país, lo que podría hacer es ofrecer un programa de permisos de trabajo y legalizar a las personas. Así podemos saber quién está en este país, y eso es porque lo que nosotros hemos peleado por muchos años. So really quickly, we don't have a lot of details about this announcement. This is another attack that's seeking to instill fear in our community. And my question is, if they really wanted to know who's here, an easy way to do it would be to offer work permits and provide a path to legalization for everyone that's here.
Thank you. Right. One last question. I know another press conference is getting ready to start. Does anybody have, we're going to be available. One last question, Adrian.
What was the worst that you saw in the budget when it came to facilitating mass deportation and stuff?
Well, I think the budget is just full of so many problems. It's clear that members of Congress care more about filling the coffers of the rich and expanding the deportation machine than investing in our safety net for the poorest among us. So whether it's the cuts in Medicaid, SNAP, or Pell Grants, expanding this deportation machine when in fact the vast majority of those that they are encountering do not have hardened criminal records is a act against our own self-interest economically as a country, and we're going to push back on that. We'll take more questions off to the side. Many thanks to all of our affiliates for being here and showing our voice, our strength, our unity. Si se puede, more to come. Si se puede, si se puede, si se puede, si se puede, si se puede. Gracias. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry.
No. We have a lot of work to do.
I know, and I need to be more organized. But thank you for.
Thank you, brother.
Robert, thank you. Apologize.
No need to apologize. I know how it goes.
Do you need my help at all, or?
Hey,